Mali's president has just stood up to Trump. And I could have never seen this coming, ladies and gentlemen. You see, on April the 2nd, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order establishing what he termed as a reciprocal tariff system. Under that system, which took effect from actually April 5th this year, a 10% baseline tariff was applied to imports from many countries in the world, which included African countries, ladies and gentlemen. And if you remember, many African presidents traveled to the White House to literally go and beg Trump to reconsider the tariffs, which saw some of them actually embarrassed on live TV. Some of those African presidents were President Ramaphosa of South Africa, President Joseph Boakai of Liberia, President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani of Mauritania, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal, and others, if you remember. Now, Mali was also hit with the same 10% increase in tariffs. But instead of joining these countries or his counterparts to go and beg for adjustment, General Assimi Goita rather decided to do what no African country has done. The general has just introduced a law that now requires every American traveler to Mali to pay a bond fee before entry. The general is mirroring what the Trump administration did to Mali in a different fashion, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, from today, 13th October 2025, if you hold an American passport and want to travel to Mali for any reason, depending on your age, you are required to pay between $5,000 to $15,000 US upfront as a bond fee before entry. This fee is mandatory, is by force. The purpose of this bond fee is, first of all, to reciprocate the 10% tariffs America has placed on goods exported from Mali. And the second is also to ensure that every American traveler to Mali stays within the visa requirements. Therefore, the fee is refundable. Pay attention. This fee is refundable so long as you do not break any of the requirements that pertains to your visa. For instance, when you have to leave Mali, the nature of business you can engage in whilst in Mali, it should fall within the visa conditions, ladies and gentlemen. It is from $5,000 US to $15,000 US, ladies and gentlemen. The general, Assimi Goita, isn't playing. He isn't joining the group to go beg Trump for mercy, because he understands one thing. He understands that that is not how you respond to a bully. Even till this day, many other African heads of states are waiting in line to meet Trump to go and beg. Even till this day, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason remains the same. They want a favor and a possible reduction in tariffs. This is what is separating the leaders of the Sahel states from the rest of African countries, ladies and gentlemen. And this is one of the reasons why military takeovers in Africa are becoming popular. As I speak with you now, ladies and gentlemen, the Madagascar situation has taken another form from where it was. Right now, a special division within the army are subtly providing support for the Gen Zs to force the president to resign. The situation is now very, very close in Madagascar to another coup, ladies and gentlemen. Similar thing is about to erupt in Cameroon. Mark my words on this day. Already, campaign posters of Paul Biya are being brought down by the youth everywhere they find one. All it will take is one casualty situation to trigger the entire youth of Cameroon to roar. Mark my words. Now, let me add some stats and facts to the Mali-US tariff and bond situation before I forget. You see, before the military took over in governance in Mali, it was estimated that at least 9,000 Americans visited Mali on the average every year. 9,000. These were Americans involved in mining, construction, and tourism. But on the other hand, in 2022, the U.S. Embassy in Bamako issued 3,074 non-immigrant visas. A safe and data-informed estimate is that approximately 4,000 to 6,000 Malian citizens visit America in a year 4 to 6,000, which actually means there are more American citizens making trips to Mali than Malians to America. And when you look at it statistically and in general, the number of Americans that are issued visas or travel visa-free to Africa actually is more than the numbers coming from Africa. If I'm not exaggerating, in order for one African to get a visa to the US, more than 100 Africans will have to be refused visas. And if you didn't know, let me give you these numbers according to the US embassies in Africa. Every year, the B1, B2 visas are the most applied visas in Africa. But out of the application, Mali, on the average, sees 77.6% refusals. Ghana, 70% refusals. Nigeria, 76% refusals. Ethiopia, 73.6% refusals. The African countries with the least US visa refusals are 10 out of 54 countries. And by least visa refusals, I'm talking about those with below 50% in refusals, ladies and gentlemen. They are Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Eswatini, Mauritius, Cabo Verde, Morocco, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and Seychelles. These are the 10. Apart from these countries, you are more likely to be refused a US visa, if you hold any other African passport, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me put that aside for a minute. The revenue generated by American travelers and businesses in Mali totally outweighs the remittances sent by Malians in America. This is a fact when you consider the size of American-owned businesses in Mali, ladies and gentlemen. Now, having said this, Trump slammed 10% tariff on Mali, and Assimi Goita responds with a slam of between $5,000 to $15,000 in bond fee on every American citizen traveling to Mali. Does it look like it will help the cause of the Malian government, ladies and gentlemen? I believe yes, absolutely. The reason being this: every single project American companies in Mali are engaged in is already being targeted and sought after by the Chinese. And the Chinese is also looking to absorb most of the raw materials that goes from Africa to America. And guess how I know this, ladies and gentlemen? The Chinese government has since 2010 made a major international commitment to grant 0% tariff treatment on 97% of tariff lines to least developing countries, which includes Mali. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of countries who benefit from this Chinese deal are all from Africa. So clearly, China wants to replace America on this continent. But with this imposition of bond to pay before entry, Mali will indirectly recoup some of the revenue it will lose through these tariffs, ladies and gentlemen, through this new immigration fee. Remember, the fee is mandatory, even though refundable, and is either paid at the Malian embassy in the US or at the point of entry. There is so much the Malian government can do with that money, looking at the average number of American travelers that trip Mali every year. Ladies and gentlemen, the primary reason the whole world wants to have a piece of America is this. It's because of the system they've built for themselves and the business opportunities there. These are the facts. Therefore, the need for every country, especially in Africa, to focus on improving themselves should be our topmost priority in 2025. When our school system is good and healthcare is great and economic opportunities are there for businesses and individuals, ladies and gentlemen, why would anybody be doing everything possible to travel to America? And in such a situation like this, with the tariffs, you'll be able to retaliate to Trump. You'll be able to retaliate by placing an equal tariff on goods or other things that comes from America. The world as it is right now, ladies and gentlemen, isn't about leadership that begs and easily succumbs. You'll be seen as weak. The leaders of this world who are really moving the needle are those who have ideas on nationalism and alternatives. There is so much African leaders can learn from India's Prime Minister. He is an ally of America, but he is equally strategic with his partnership with other essential countries to his country. You must produce something. This is the bottom line. You must produce something as a country, and you must create strategic alliances to be relevant. This is where the world is, and every country in Africa must catch up, ladies and gentlemen. We need alliances within Africa. Focus on African goods and services. That's where our strength will lie. And that's how we, the African people, and our economies will emerge. I'm Cyrus, coming to you from Accra, Ghana. Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell for more. I'll come your way again with another one. Until then, God bless Africa, and it is bye-bye for now.